Silicon Valley at 7th Cloud Expo. Very good to see so many faces at this extraordinary hour of day 4 of this 7th Cloud Expo. The Early Bird Power Panel is going to look at what's working, what's not, and what's next. The 3 big whats we have, as usual, 5 experts, second to none, and I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves because that's always a good way of going. Darryl.
Good morning. Thank you, Jeremy. Darryl Brown. I'm the Director of Vertical Marketing for Cloud at a company called Equinix. We're a platform provider for cloud services. You know, when I think about the Cloud Expo, especially between the one earlier in the year and this one, I've seen a huge evolution in what people are focusing on. Specifically right now, earlier in the year, people didn't kind of get their head around what cloud really was still, but this is kind of picking up now. There's a lot more diversity, and there's a lot more focus on the strategy, and I'm looking forward to this. Thank you.
Sounds good to me. Andy.
I'm Andy Kicklighter, Marketing Manager for Cloud at Nimsoft. And Nimsoft specializes in monitoring solutions. We started as a data center monitoring company, supplying solutions to service providers primarily. And right now we have solutions that go from data centers through clouds, and in fact are powering a number of the larger cloud environments now with customers like Rackspace and SoftLayer. What I've noticed from this one versus last year's is that, let's see, well, VMware is talking a lot about their SaaS direction in the future. But aside from that, a lot more people seem to be trying to implement.
That was very mean, if I may say so.
It's as cheeky as I can get at 7:30 in the morning. A lot more people are getting close to either implementing or they have implementations in process. There are a lot fewer people who are just wondering what cloud is. And you know, that's a good development.
Okie dokie. Ken.
My name is Ken Salchow. I'm the manager of our technical marketing group at F5. For anybody who doesn't know F5, we've spent the past decade connecting users to applications. So when it comes to cloud, it's simply the applications are no longer in the data center necessarily. But people still need to be able to connect to them, and they need to be secure, they need to be fast, and they need to be available. So when I talk to the people here at the Cloud Expo, I think the big thing that I've seen is that I see people looking beyond just simply the SaaS offerings, and they're starting to look at some of the other potential uses of cloud as a technology to further their business goals. And I still see as one of the primary things that we're not addressing is standards. Being able to interconnect. Now, I know a lot of the cloud service providers would love it if their customers were stuck with them. I mean, that's a good business model when people can't move. But I think the real power, especially for the enterprise, is the ability to be able to move, to have that flexibility. That's the value of what cloud offers them. So I think we're going to need to focus on that.
We'll certainly be looping back to that. Jeffrey.
Excuse me. Jeffrey Samuels, Chief Marketing Officer at GoGrid. GoGrid is a leading infrastructure as a service company. We were the first and probably the largest pure play infrastructure as a service company, meaning all we do is focus on hosting in the cloud. We have about 10,000 customers doing that today. You know, what I've noticed here is that you have these two forces. I think you have, which one's positive and one I'm leery of. Well, there's a specialization going on right now, and I think my fellow panelists represent that, where you're focusing on core competency and attacking it. And that's going to drive adoption. But at the same time, and it gets the jury's out on what's a larger force, there's still so many players coming in and not having a clear message. And I really feel like enterprises, especially the larger enterprises, but businesses in general, need to understand the clear message, need to understand what this paradigm shift means for them and for the different vendors who are all trying to go for this land grab, but that's not really the right way to approach it.
We'll return to that too. Good theme. Simon.
Morning, my name's Simon West. I'm Chief Marketing Officer for Terremark. We're a managed hosting, co-location, cloud computing provider in the US, in Latin America, and Europe. I've noticed a few things at Cloud Expo. One, managing caffeine levels at 7:30 in the morning is more an art than a science.
See, now that's pithy.
So you'll bear with me.
Not cloudy, but pithy.
Not cloudy. Two, I think as other people have said, we've noticed more and more people just in the last 6 months since the New York Expo and intervening events serious about, in the short term, moving production workloads to the cloud, getting serious about the cloud. Simultaneously, in a world where some of the terminologies and some of the layers of service are starting to shake out, I've seen, particularly at this show, new logos showing up with hitherto undiscovered layers of cloud management, cloud enablement software. So on the one hand, the low-level stuff, I think, is starting to become clearer. On the other hand, there's a lot of stuff suddenly showing up that we haven't seen before. So the waters are still a little murky, I think.
All right. Well, I have to say that our starting point, actually, Jeff has beaten us to it. The title of the panel, remember, was What's Working, What's Not. And what I actually had in mind was how we're presenting the cloud. I wasn't actually thinking of how we're implementing it, because all of you more or less have alluded to the fact that the way it's being presented, and I'm sure our audience will have a view on this, and out there on SYS-CON TV, it's a little confusing right now. So one of the things that Cloud Expo prides itself on, this is the 7th time we've done this show, we're still not providing a confusion solution. So let's try, by the time we've left this panel, to say, I hope we've solved some of that confusion. And you all have a duty of care. It's your message. It's not our message. We're just an expo. But you're actually cloud computing vendors. So who wants to have at this crystallization? I mean, Jeff, you raised it. How are we to, you know, have a sort of second go around at saying, actually, I know we said it's everything. It really isn't. It's this and it's that. And Ken should have a shot at this, because what you said was all verbs. I like that. Just we can return to why verbs work.
Yeah, so I'll start it by helping define this shift that's happening. GoGrid believes that it's a change of behavior at the enterprise. Instead of buying technology, that, you know, enterprises are buying services. And if you take that, you know, and lose the cloud word for a second,
right.
And if you look at what all us as vendors are doing today, and it's how we approach that shift. When you look at what infrastructure as service means, it's you know, buying hardware, software, and enabling that and pay-as-you-go, elastic, on-demand, and completely scalable. Being able to program, being in programmatic development and software. Those are the elements of infrastructure as a service that we see, and it's very difficult to get that same definition from many other places when you have people, you know, organizations slapping cloud on anything. And I think there needs to be, and we as vendors, and I'm serious when I look at my panels here, we're doing that job in trying to figure out where each of us stack up in this new paradigm. So I just think it's a real crisp definition of what we say is cloud and an understanding of what enterprises need to do as we adopt.
Ken?
Yeah, I was going to say that there's a couple components to that. As much as we help define what cloud is to the enterprise, to the IT departments, we're dealing with a force much greater than us. And that is, we have media, we have some other vendors who are even here who are espousing this notion of cloud to consumers. And I know that one of the things that it's kind of a passion of mine over the last few years is this whole notion of consumerism of technology. I've told this story a world around. My mother has an iPhone. I love my mother, but she's not the most technically adept person that I've ever met. But not only does she have an iPhone, and she provisions apps to do everything she wants to do, but she even upgraded to the iPhone 4, and I never even got a phone call. So the technology is getting to be sophisticated enough where people can do all these wonderful things. And the media is telling them that's cloud. So we have two jobs, really. We still have to educate the masses on what cloud really means. And we have to educate our customers, because our customers are also trying to present solutions to their end users. And they have to deal with that dichotomy as well. So as good a job as we do, I think we still are going to have to deal with this murkiness, because we're in the face of this mass media that's, I hate to say it, but yay cloud.
Well, let me just say one thing. The enterprise shouldn't be falling into that trap. So although one might say, mea culpa, I'm not going to, because I don't think we've ever helped propagate a fuzziness. On the contrary, we're trying to look for clarity all the time, clarity. So by sticking to the enterprise, which is really Cloud Expo's focus, I'm hoping will cause some of this shakeout, this sort of shakeout in terminology. I mean, what about that, just the lexicon? You almost said, Jeff, that as soon as we drop cloud, we're safe. So we can just put that aside. You can't stamp it on everything. And services you have to justify.
I mean, we have to address the question of why. I mean, it's going to be a slower shift, but right now, depending on what data you look at, maybe 5% of all enterprises are embracing what I just defined as cloud or infrastructure as a service. Now, the question is that good enough? I mean, one of the great things we're seeing is people moving from test and dev to production. I mean, all day long, customers are starting, 2 years ago when we first launched, it was really just small web applications and larger enterprises doing test and dev. Now they are moving to production. That's awesome, right? However, it's still, it's a walk. The enterprises that are doing it are walking there. And the question is, are we okay with that? I mean, at GoGrid, we're not. Obviously, we want to increase the education because we feel that is the right place for many, many applications on the cloud. But we have to address that. What is preventing, this 2, 3, 4% less if you do revenue or total addressable market? I mean, is it the cloudiness of cloud? I think someone coined that yesterday, so I'm not going to take credit for that. Is it, enterprises need to educate themselves? I think there's a lot of questions.
There was an attempt to work on the taxonomy of it. I think on the cloud side, there is a problem, the way we look at it, between cloud computing, which I think is concrete, is definable, it probably exists at the infrastructure and platform phases, versus cloud as abstract metaphor, which predates any of this trend, and it's been around for 20 years. And I'm going to blame the SaaS guys, because as soon as you decide SaaS is part of the cloud, then you've got Apple with the mobile me icon's got cloud, everything's got cloud. One of the things we did collectively, perhaps unconsciously, to try and cut through some of that, was start to stratify it with the as-a-service appellation. And we talk about, everyone's got their stack diagrams. You've got infrastructure as a service, where I think most of us play, which I think is pretty definable, pretty clear.
Right.
Platform as a service at the development level, I think pretty clear, and even software as a service, whatever my misgivings. If you walk around the show floor today, that as a service appellation is being applied to 63 other hitherto undiscovered pieces of the stack. Anything that can be delivered over the internet in a recurring model is suddenly as a service. I had, in the last couple of months, 2 separate companies approach me as either printing as a service or as cloud printers.
Cloud printers.
And on further inspection, what the definition of a cloud printer apparently is a printer with a website who can receive attachments in email.
Or wireless.
or wireless. So the as-a-service stuff, I think, was helpful. It boiled down to a more pragmatic model. But there's now starting to be some fuzzy layers drawn there as well, which isn't particularly
Do we need
helpful.
tactics in this, Darryl?
I think we do. What we're seeing, we're behind these guys as an organization. So I kind of, in a way, get to sit there and watch them deploy their infrastructure because I have all my data centers and all the telcos. But I'm seeing many different people coming into it, like the telecommunications providers. They're deploying their clouds, which could be a rebadge or a shrink wrap, right? We've got the XaaS problem, I totally agree with. There's so many different layers. I think predominantly it's a case of when people look at cloud, decide what you want to do, just like you would have done in the past as an IT department.
Yes, back
and
to
then
verbs.
go back to basics, go look at what you want to do, then go look at who I can use. It may be through your telco, it may be through a managed services provider like GoGrid or like Terremark, or it may be you want to do it yourself, or you want to bring Dell in there and have to stack a bunch of computers up for you. But in reality, what cloud brings, I see, is choice. It's choice. It's choice for the customer. It's choice for the end user on how they get to their business apps. So it's not just about the enterprise, it's about the guys at the enterprise using it. Because as IT departments, you're all very aware of, if your users don't like it, they're going to be really hard to adopt it.
Or on the other hand, if they like it a lot, even if you don't support it.
They're going to adopt it too quick and it won't scale, right?
Yes.
So I think generally speaking, just get back to basics. Look at what you want to do. You can call it cloud, call it whatever you want, but at the end, again, it's software. It's how you get to that software, your ability to move around between software, and then when it comes to networks, can you get to it over your WAN? Can you get to it over the net? Can you get to it from your BlackBerry? Can you get to it from your iPhone? And do you feel safe about it?
Does that resonate, Andy?
Well, yes, but I have to say that
Guardedly,
somewhat
guardedly.
As far as the messaging goes, though, it doesn't help when industry pundits like Mr. Ellison will tell us.
Industry pundit? When did he become an industry pundit?
Like Mr. Well, he's more
in his
than
head,
that,
in
actually.
his head.
It's a self-funded.
Is he here? No, I don't think he's out here today. will tell us things like SaaS is not cloud. I think we just have to be very clear on what kind of services we're delivering. And if somebody asked us, is it cloud or not? Well, you know, my brother, who is managing partner at a law firm, asked me the other day, well, my IT guys are really telling me that I should look at this cloud stuff. We should be doing it. And I go, no. What is it that they want to do in the cloud? What do you want to do in the cloud? You've got, you know, highly confidential client information. Is there a right environment for you? Let's talk about this a little bit more.
It goes back. I mean, it goes back. I mean, that's a perfect example. Like, enterprise businesses should not be looking to buy the cloud. Right? Cloud is not a technology. It is a.
But they look to buy SOA. They're looking to buy cloud. They'll be looking to buy Bonk. Bonk.
True. But if that's the way they're approaching it, they're not going to find what they're not going to address their goals. And if they do buy something that they think is the cloud, it's not going to fulfill their needs. And then it's going to push.
Yeah, everyone comes down. Of course, we know that.
But there is a fundamental shift underway. If you take what Gartner said, I'm forgetting how recently, but they said by 2015, 50% of IT services will get delivered through service providers. And I forget how soon we get to 80%. Maybe it's as soon as 2020. But that's a huge shift that's going to be driven by the ability to deliver services in the most economical way possible, and where IT is delivered by the people who can do it best. And that's what cloud gives you.
And I think I think you hit the nail on the head, though. And that's, again, it's as an enterprise, let's go look at what applications I've got, go look at what applications I need, and then identify the service provider or providers that can help me, say, consolidate a bunch of applications in a virtualization project, distribute some more, it's like some communication services out to the edge of various clouds using different people, perhaps with different applications, but not necessarily, they're not buying cloud, they're using cloud as a tool. I think we've just got to give them the opportunity to look at these tools that we are providing. I don't sell cloud, I provide the infrastructure behind it, the physical. But you look at the tools that you need and what you need in your tool bag, and then identify the people that can help you best deliver it. And in some ways, that will help the enterprises drive us to do a better job.
Ken, then Jeff.
Okay. So you hit the nail on the head. I think what a lot of enterprises, when they first look at cloud, were thinking is that this was a total outsource play, right?
Right.
They could just buy it and send out all their IT guys, and it is potentially an outsource play. But the granularity that we have is exactly what you're talking about, finding the experts who do that. And so it's the ability for, I think, enterprise customers to focus on what do they do best and keep that. But where's the cost effectiveness of training and hiring and maintaining an entire staff of people who do all these different little software projects? Like, why does every enterprise customer have a whole team of people that does Exchange? I mean, is that really cost effective? Does that really provide differentiation for that business? Probably not. And so it is an outsource play, but it's a capability of outsourcing components, letting a business really pick and choose what they're good at and what really doesn't add value to their company. It's a necessity. We all need email. I haven't heard any go off during this, but we all have email. We need that email, but is that really a differentiator for the business? Does that make Oracle better than IBM? Their email service, I mean, the ones that they actually use to do their business, probably not.
This also circles back to Darryl's idea of choice. So there's another type of choice. So this is an interesting prism we're looking through now.
So let me, and if I'm going in the wrong direction, steer me back. But like looking at what you just said about, Gartner says in 2015, X% is 50%. Did you say
50%?
50% is going to be with the service provider. That does not necessarily mean that it's cloud.
No,
right?
indeed not.
No. But I also, no, I know. But I'm saying this is everyone, the analysts have this issue. Exactly. The same thing. If a company, outsources all their IT to CSC, for example, many enterprises will say, hey, I'm cloud enabling my IT staff, okay. and it's I don't know. I mean, like
that's a valid point. So we got to look for that.
We have to stay focused on, in my opinion, on making infrastructure, software, monitoring services, and putting it in a way that fits those characteristics of elastic on-demand.
What you've introduced inadvertently there is almost a desperate thought, which is there we are just taking ourselves to task, or you're taking yourselves to task, or we need clarity, we've got to stop people cloud washing, however on earth we do that. And now it gets worse. The purchasers we've got to say, when you purchase, don't say it's cloudy if it's not, and don't, I mean, it's really quite a problem. So I'm beginning to think world peace. We're going to move on to World Peace Expo. We'll have it sorted in 2 years. This is going to take 17. Simon, give me some hope.
Oh,
For clarity, for end
looking at the wrong person,
confusion.
mate.
He's still looking for the caffeine.
Fundamentally, what we're trying to do, though, is trying to get it so that an enterprise can concentrate its resources where it makes the most sense on their core value add and business.
Well, you're so
buy
cool
the
and
IT
logical.
services.
You don't belong in this space at all. It's just ridiculous.
Buy the IT services that are needed where it makes the most sense for them.
You actually
Whether
mentioned
it's
that
internal or external.
Yes, no,
there's
I
a
couldn't
question
agree
of
more.
outsourcing and control, though, and you refer to as there's an inference that the cloud, and let's deal with cloud at the computing level, the infrastructure for the sake of argument, because I think software is still solving for a much broader perspective. We see as many cloud customers in the infrastructure as a service space at Terremark who have come to us or have moved some of their stuff, who have chosen to put some of their stuff on our infrastructure as a service platform versus the managed hosting, as we do, who have perhaps grown into cloud from co-location. So for many customers, and when we were building the product 3 or 4 years ago, the feature requests that were coming in were from customers who weren't saying, I've got colo or I just want a self-managed platform, but who perhaps had managed hosting and said, this is very appropriate, this full level of management for certain applications. But what I really want for these other applications, these interdepartmental applications, my test and dev stuff, is all of your technology, all of your infrastructure, all of your availability. But I don't need the bodies, I don't need the personnel, I've got it. So the cloud can be both a way to gain more control, depending on where you're coming from, as well as give some control up.
All right, to help crystallize then, on behalf of our audiences all over the world, the ones here and the ones out there, let's think about this. So, everybody likes use cases, and we're all agreed that seems to focus at sessions, use case. Right? That's a sort of magic word, a little passe-partout. You just say use case and people's eyes pop up. So why don't we try that? Why don't we go a little bit further in this role of prognostication? So Darryl, see if you can start. What I want is a hypothetical use case, that if only X vertical or Y institution were to do Z, this would nail really how cloud is transformational. So something you're dreaming of. This is all going to fall into place when just this thing happens. Try that.
Let's think of, say, a large health insurance provider.
Okay.
Right. They've gone through a whole bunch of acquisitions.
Yeah.
And they have a myriad of applications.
Yeah.
And of course, they're probably thinking about bringing in their systems integrator to help them fix it. But before they even do that, they've got to look at the apps they've got. You know, which ones are semi-real time, right? Which ones what do my end users expect from them? How do they expect them to perform? And start putting them in buckets. So you can put those apps in buckets, say these apps all have similar characteristics, be it performance, end user expectations, X, Y, Z. And then they can perhaps look at a virtualization project and say, hey, I need to take an IaaS service, say from GoGrid or Terremark or Vertical, whoever it is out there. And they can put those apps on there. And then they can choose where they need to put them based on where their end users are. And I think you can do that. You can do it with your real-time applications. And that will allow those enterprises to really think about what they use. Now, say if they're looking at, say, Salesforce automation with their email system for calendaring, right? Now you've got two different SaaS-y type things, right? So you've got your email system, say your Exchange, which you might run yourself or stick on a cloud. And you've got, say, your automation, which could, say, be, we all know them, right, Salesforce. Now they can look at them and how they integrate. So it's a very logical, step-by-step process they can go through. For me, it's a dream. You know, I would work with the various people here to try and look at that with them, and then my customer can now pick and choose who they're going to use. They've probably got a myriad of WANs too. And if they've got a myriad of wide area networks, then as they go for that infrastructure and that cloud solution, choose the cloud solution and put it near the WANs. So they can put their IT infrastructure on the backbones of the carriers that they're currently using, and they can now look to do a very modular, logical integration project. Yet if they may go with, say, a large systems integrator we're all familiar with, and those guys might say, do it my way. But, I think cloud is choice to the point.
Okay. Andy.
So the question is, when do we think cloud will have arrived?
No, not really. I'm wondering whether that you have in mind a use case that just simply nails everything we're talking about. And perhaps you don't. not everyone thinks that way, but I would want something to dream of.
So we're already seeing some of this right now with smaller organizations that are focused on delivering things over the web. They'll build a piece. They'll take a piece from Google Apps, for instance, that they need to build their application layer. They'll go get some infrastructure from Amazon or Rackspace or SoftLayer, and they'll do their development remotely on those pieces. And their people are scattered all over the country. They may have an office they go to once a month, and their applications are up and running in the cloud, and they have no physical presence at all. That's a pure play public cloud implementation for some companies. But that's not going to work for enterprises. There are fundamental things which are their key distinguishing stuff that need to stay in-house. There are the needs to go right now, start off with things like bursting into the cloud to get more capacity. But I think this true hybrid capability where you have the capability once you've done your segmentation for what belongs in-house and what belongs outside to go get what you need when you need it, and have the workloads be able to move within clouds, be fundamentally described in a way that makes sense, so that if you have a huge multi-Terremark database and you have your processing layer, you can move it around to wherever it makes sense. If you're a game provider, maybe that changes as the daytime line changes across the world. I think when we get to that, we're really looking at full implementations.
All right. Ken?
So I've been thinking about, I can't think of an ultimate use case that proves the point of the cloud. But if you want to talk about having a dream, I can talk about having a dream. And I've talked about that with a lot of people here, is that I think a lot of the enterprise customers I've talked to, it's all about choice with the cloud, but it's also all about instant choice. So what a lot of them think about is, as we have things like SOA directories, the holy grail of SOA, to have the directory so you can look up a service and attach to whatever service you need, is potentially having a cloud services directory. That when an enterprise customer wants to burst, when they want to move a workload to a different geographic region for whatever reason, that they can almost go out and have some sort of directory that lists all the people that have those services available based by region, based on what are the resources they have capable, what is the cost, what are they charging at that particular moment, and being able to just dynamically, as you said, move that workload around to the most efficient in the most efficient way.
So a cloud directory would be an inflection point, would be something big.
And the big thing from my standpoint, and it's a little self-serving, but I think one of the big things is that our enterprise customers need to grasp with the fact that they need to quit looking at applications as if they're in-house. I mean, they need to bucketize them and figure out which is appropriate. But when they're talking about delivering those applications to the users, they need to quit thinking about we got in-house, we've got outhouse. Yeah. we have outsourced.
It is too early.
So some of them are probably outhouse. We have cloud. Just as they need to stop thinking about where users are coming from, because it's very hard to define what a remote user is anymore. Yeah. I'm remote when I'm in the corporate offices in Seattle because I home office. Right. So I get nothing done when I'm in the office because it's remote to me. When I'm at home, which is typically remote, I'm actually in my office, I can get everything done. So enterprises are starting to not define users as in the corporate office or mobile because they change. Yeah. And I think they need to start looking at applications in the same way. It's a decoupling.
Simon had a sudden dream that he has to share.
I'm a little bit skeptical of and it's the much vaunted holy grail of a cloud of clouds where applications are whizzing around from provider to provider. I think it'll happen and that the tech will catch up and the bandwidth will catch up. But it's likely to be perhaps a one-time migration rather than permanently pinging around. And this is where the utility metaphor is a little flawed. All vaults are created equal, but data is mine. So we have customers on the cloud who have PCI DSS compliance requirements, HIPAA requirements, who have data that has to be in certain geographic areas, or for whom change simply represents risk. And I think the notion that I'm going to move my ERP system from a Terremark to an Amazon based on a price point that happens on a Monday morning is unlikely. The notion of federating a number of different cloud providers and internal infrastructure for use cases or for the logical progression of an application from test and dev to production, I think is a real one. But I think the sort of stock market view of cloud that says it's here, it's here, it's over here, is unlikely to happen with enterprise applications for whom the compliance requirements, information security requirements, and ultimately performance requirements probably trump price a lot of the time.
But it still doesn't negate Darryl's vision of choice. So
no.
you choose.
You choose it.
Not to.
And you should be able to choose to pull in and out.
Yeah.
Right? So there will be, ideally, and we have to deal with this, all the service providers, it has to be as easy to get out of the cloud as it is to get in for it to fulfill its requirements as well.
The only caveat I would add to that is that, to be honest, there's multiple components to any application that we're delivering to our customers, right? And so if there's CDN networks out there, large ones, that put out the application, the front end, the presentation layer. And I've always argued about what's the security implications of that particular component. The key of that is that they're pushing out the presentation layer to make it fast, accessible to the end user. They're still maintaining control of the data in-house. And if you understand that, if you design your applications to understand that, then I think we can get closer to more of that stock market kind of approach, as you said, because you're moving, it's what you're moving though, and that goes back to choice. Right. We can segment, we can keep things separate.
I was synthesize, I think, what a lot of people have already said on the panel, but it's about choice and specialization, right? If you know, use case that, would be applicable is as much as I'm saying everything needs to go on the cloud in that way now. I mean, that's not necessarily realistic right now, and GoGrid adapts for that with both the right partners, knowing that we specialize in infrastructure as a service and even, and everything that goes into that. But we have large retailers, for example, and Fortune 100 companies that are using us for infrastructure as a service to scale of virtual machines. But they need, whether it's for compliance or psychological apprehensions or whatnot, they need a dedicated firewall, in front of those virtual machines. So we provide that, and then I have a couple of partners on the stand here. They use F5. They can deploy that as in a virtual environment for load balancing, or they can co-locate with Equinix, because that's and be very easy to scale from Equinix to GoGrid. I think it's a matter of choice and specialization, which is going to drive where cloud is today.
Final word to Darryl. We're out of time, but he's so pithy. Final word. Sum this up for us.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's about the choice of the application, the choice of the networks you use, the choice of the providers, and it's also about location. Because at the end of the day, of an end user, right? If I'm an end user, we all like to hug our computers, right? We build our cloud solution, want to give them a nice big hug. But if my headquarters is in, say, Chicago, but my customers are in Japan, you got to think about where you deploy your cloud applications too, because your end users are going to have sucky performance. And I think that as well, back to distributing the front end, like the service nodes, the applets that allow you to gain access to the clouds and the ability for the clouds to choose where things go based on what your users' SLAs are. Those are some cool things that will really, really help us moving forward. But we will compete better with, or work better with each other, I think, as the enterprises drivers to allow them to have choices. And if we bear that in mind, that will help our industry grow and a downside quicker.
A resident note on which to end this power panel. Let us thank, this is the power panel on which we coined the term IT outhousing. Let's make a little note of that and credit it to Ken. And this is the panel at which we won't summarize about what's working, and we won't even summarize about what's not, but we will summarize what's next: choice. Thank you very much to our panel: Darryl Brown, Andy Kicklighter, Ken Salchow, Jeff Samuel, and Simon West. And thank you, audience, for being up so early, and thank you for watching this out there on the World Wide Web.